The Book of Proverbs, Chapter 1. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. To know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, and judgment, and equity. To give subtlety to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear, and will increase learning. And a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels, to understand a proverb and the interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. My son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother. For they shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head, and chains about thy neck. My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. If they say, Come with us, let us lay wait for blood. Let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those that go down into the pit. We shall find all precious substance, we shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in thy lot among us. Let us all have one purse. My son, walk not thou in the way with them. Refrain thy foot from their path. For their feet run to evil, and make haste to shed blood. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird, and they lay wait for their own blood. They lurk privily for their own lives. So are the ways of every one that is greedy of gain, which taketh away the life of the owners thereof. Wisdom crieth without, she uttereth her voice in the streets. She crieth in the chief place of concourse, in the openings of the gates. In the city she uttereth her words, saying, How long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. Turn you at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you. I will make known my words unto you. Because I have called, and ye refused. I have stretched out my hand, and no man regarded. But ye have set at naught all my counsel, and would none of my reproof. I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. When your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind, when distress and anguish cometh upon you. Then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. For that they hated knowledge, and did not choose the fear of the Lord. They would none of my counsel. They despised all my reproof. Therefore shall they eat the fruit of their own way, and be filled with their own devices. For the turning away of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. But whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely, and shall be quiet from fear of evil.
Amen. Good evening. It is September 9th. It is a Tuesday, 2014. This is your host, Mike Callahan, and welcome to the Watchman News. Wow. So as you can tell, we're on Proverbs, which means we finished up Corinthians yesterday. And so the Corinthians project is done, and I'm going to go on with Proverbs and do the same thing. I'm going to, in order, do a chapter of Proverbs until we're done with Proverbs. That's what came to me that I should do next, and that's what I shall do. That, Proverbs chapter 1, says a lot. It really, really says a lot. It well describes life today and the way people are acting today. The people that are turning away from knowledge. They're just going by their own thoughts, their own opinions, their own just feelings about things, and not paying attention to how things actually are. They're not thinking about others, they're thinking about themselves. Where I grew up at, a town called Highland, Illinois, the teachers are going on strike. And like most situations when teachers go on strike, there seems to be a lot of opinions that are flying around and all that. You know, Highland teachers make a fair amount of money for what they do. And I can't speak much for really any particular school system at this current time being because of Common Core that's going on. But wow, it's just amazing that people wish bad on others, and they don't know the facts. They don't stand in these other people's shoes. And I'm speaking of the teachers, and I'm not defending them, nor am I attacking them. I'm going to try and take a balanced level stance here, but I just want to point something out. Over the years, since I was in school, which seems forever ago, it seems like teachers, less is being provided for them, and they have to provide more themselves. I've seen a lot of teachers. I have a few teachers on my Facebook friends list, and I've seen a lot of them talk over the years about how they've had to provide this or that or the other thing for their classes. And you know, this stuff is coming out of their pockets now. And so I always take that in consideration whenever, you know, this debate comes up when it comes to a teacher strike. You know, people are saying, oh, well, you know, we should teach our own kids, and I'm all for that. I think people should homeschool. But we really got to stop demanding that we decide what other people are worth. We've got to stop that. Really. We can't decide what another human being is worth. We can't say your family deserves less just because it's my opinion. What is the problem? Really, what is the problem? I can't figure it out. Because by denying somebody else a decent wage, you're not going to gain a better wage. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And I'm talking about everything from the teachers to the people that work in fast food. What really bothers me about the argument against the people that work in fast food, the argument that they should not make $15 an hour, is the simple fact that most of the people that are now holding those jobs, about the only people that can even get those jobs right now, or people are college students or former college students that owe student loans. You know, so they've got their car payment, their government mandated insurance payment for their car, right? Now they're going to have a government mandated health insurance payment. They've got rent. They've got food. They've got anything else that they might need throughout their normal daily life. And that's not even talking about if they got children or not. And they're supposed to do that on whatever minimum wage is in that particular location. $15 an hour is not too much to pay these people. It's not. The argument is totally invalid. And when you see the rate of pay of CEOs and how it has just drastically skyrocketed versus the pay of the workers, it puts things in a little better perspective. And in what? You know, what's your interest in it? Are you worried the cost of a cheeseburger might go up? Maybe the cost of a McDonald's cheeseburger needs to go up. Maybe it needs to cost more to eat that chemical-laden junk than what it does to go to your local supermarket and buy what you need to make a good home-cooked meal, which, by the way, is going through the roof as well. I'm hearing reports price of milk and dairy products is supposed to go up 40-something%. I want to say 42% is what I heard. Wow. Wow. I believe that was on the Josh Tolley show that I listened to today. Another good radio show to listen to, Josh Tolley. I really enjoy listening to his show, and it gives me a morning show to listen to. I can't ever get enough good news shows to listen to. Not necessarily to give me ideas or material for this show, but I like to hear different viewpoints. I like to hear different arguments, and I like to hear as much news as I can, because that's what's important. Not what's going to happen on this episode of Duck Dynasty or The Walking Dead or whatever show happens to be on and people are going crazy about. That's what's important. And that's what Proverbs 1 was talking about. I mean, that's what it's that's what it's referring to. Wisdom crieth without. She uttereth her voice in the streets. She crieth in the chief place of concourse, in the openings of the gates. In the city she uttereth her words, saying, How long, ye simple ones? Will ye love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. Turn you at my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you. I will make known my words to you. Because I have called, and ye refuse. I have stretched out my hand, and no man regarded. Wow. Powerful words. Powerful words. Very descriptive of what's going on today. So are you going to turn your back? Are you going to take on the prosperity of fools and be destroyed by it? Or are you going to hearken unto the Lord and dwell in safety? I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. Wow, I didn't plan to start out with a lecture like that, folks. I really didn't. Let's go ahead and get on with Suspicious Observers and see what he's got going on for today. I like it. I like it when a Bible chapter moves me in that way. It provokes my thought, provokes my words. I love it when the Lord guides me. It's a feeling, it's a direction like no other. It's a wonderful thing. Okay, let's listen to Suspicious Observers for today. Enjoy.
Good morning, folks. An M4.5 solar flare was unleashed from the incoming sunspot group 2158 on the northern hemisphere. The blast came last night, peaking just after midnight UTC, or a little after 8 o'clock Eastern Time. We were able to capture the event in progress as it peaked and shot right over to the D region absorption prediction to find a radio blackout in progress over the Pacific Ocean. The event itself was a long-duration flare. Those usually produce coronal mass ejections. You can see this eruption rippling nearly everything in the corona around it as it sends charged particles up and away. And folks, you can see the halo fairly clearly here. Ejecta coming from all sides of the central disk. We don't need an endless spiral. You can tell this is heading in Earth's direction. Since most of the plasma is heading left, we shouldn't expect more than a minor geomagnetic storm. Looking at the sunspots reveals a bit more complexity than the past few days. That region that fired up north has some magnetic complexity amidst somewhat small-sized umbral cores to the south of the large main umbra. Bit of central vorticity can be seen to this one as well. Meanwhile, down south we've got two areas to monitor. Magnetics out in the lead group could be getting ready to become more complex, while the delta spot that has lingered behind that for days on end continues to survive. In the gamma energy range, we took a burst on September 7th from the Perseus constellation, about 1600 UTC. In near-Earth space, 24 hours of solar wind telemetry shows calming speed and virtually no geomagnetic instability. Don't forget the inner heliosphere is lined up, sans our little blue rock. We looked at this for flare making before. Top weather story comes out of Arizona. We've noted for days and days now the flood potential off the moisture shearing from Norbert, and unfortunately the records have been absolutely shattered. This is one for the books. 2 people unfortunately lost their lives to this flood disaster as it raged on all day and night, and as we will see, it's not done yet. Top article is for the new Electric Universe enthusiast as we explore the spark of life by revisiting an old experiment and getting some new results. Also, the big bad plant food is approaching new highs in the modern age. Gotta love their timing, as the most baffling aspect to their story is the global warming pause. We put this video out last night in summation. A link to it can be found right below this video. So we've still got the remnants of Norbert to the west, and you can see the airflow still coming right to the U.S. southwest, while a low drawing in to the north of that will swing east with its convergence tonight and create severe weather warnings for the Midwest states. Flood potential remains down here as well, unfortunately. Europe sees the primary land-dwelling low atop Norway once more. That'll be the top precipitation zone this evening, with minor watches to the south simply off the Mediterranean and residual moisture. Down under, the story is simple to see, with the major Antarctic low drawing a convergence across the southeast. Simple as that, our top watch zone and some bad weather potential down under. We've got shots of our star to close. It's 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 3:30 a.m. here in Washington State. That's the news. Eyes open. No fear. Be safe, everyone.
Big thanks to Ben Davidson with Suspicious Observers. As always, the link is down in the About tab. And always appreciate all the hard work he does. So we can get on with the news. What I have for you. Start out with a little bit about ISIS here. The video, I'm going to try and pause it here before it actually starts. Maybe it's not going to automatically. Anyway, the sheriff was asked about ISIS. They more or less talked about the possibility of ISIS crossing the southern border. And he had some really, really strong words for them. And I believe that there's a lot of citizens in this country that have the same thoughts and the same feelings as what this sheriff has. I thought I would share this video because it I don't think it's just a fear tactic. I don't think it's just false words. I think there is a definite need to be concerned with terrorist organizations crossing the southern border. And I don't mean that in a 9/11 kind of way, because as you all probably know by now, I don't really buy the 9/11 terrorist story. But I think it is a threat now. And I think it's a threat now because we're the ones that armed them, we're the ones that trained them, we're the ones that enabled them to take down these other countries, to destabilize and take down these other countries. And they needed to destabilize these smaller countries and build up bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's almost like training and practice. And they've done that, and now it's time to take on the big boy. And we are the big boy. So be vigilant and have an attitude like this sheriff.
And we also understand that you received an intelligence briefing about ISIS. What specifically did it tell you?
Just that information came in about 3 or 4 days ago that there was a suspected cells of ISIS that was in Juarez, Mexico, that they were operating. They were moving through that country, and there was some activity going on. And it warned us to be on the lookout for it, to be expect something, and be careful with the law enforcement officers around the border and within close proximity to the border.
So quickly, what's your message to, if there are ISIS fighters who may already be in the United States or in your area across the border? What's your message to them?
Well, if they rear their ugly head, we'll send them ahead.
That's pretty much fine point on it, Sheriff.
Thank you, Sheriff Painter.
Thanks
Sheriff
so much.
Gary Painter.
If they rear their ugly heads, we'll shoot them down. Wow. Wow. At least he was honest. At least he said it. I urge everybody to be vigilant. Be very, very vigilant. Whether it be from members of Mexican drug gangs or whether it be from terrorist threats, or because we're on our own. We're on our own. Our federal government is doing absolutely nothing to protect our southern border, and you can bet they're not going to do anything to protect you either. That doesn't support the globalist agenda. That doesn't, if they do something, then you might not have as much reason to fear. And I'm not trying to get you to fear. That's not my goal. I'm trying to get you to see. Don't fear. Don't fear. Just know what's going on and be prepared. No reason to be afraid. If you've got the Lord in your heart, you have no reason to be afraid. Just do what He tells you to do. Do what's right. Okay, we'll go on to the next bit of news. Oops. Getting a little click happy there. And this link, I actually I got this page after I had already set up the news, so I apologize. This link is not down in the About tab. However, you could, if you want to read it yourself, you could search the headline there. It's on RT. Joint U.S.-Israeli missile test over Mediterranean picked up by Russian radar. Israel and the United States have conducted a joint missile test of the Arrow 2 interceptor system. It took place over the Mediterranean, according to Israel's defense ministry, and was detected by military radar in southwest Russia. The missile was monitored by Israel's defense ministry, who also added that the results were being analyzed by a team of engineers. The test was detected by the Russian Missile Attack Warning System and defense spokesman in Moscow told Russian media. Major General Igor Konishnikov, something like that, from the Russian Defense Ministry stated that the missile was picked up from the Armvar radar station and they monitored it for 40 seconds. The trajectory of the missile went through the central part of the Mediterranean Sea and was heading towards its east coast. It fell into the sea around 300 kilometers north of Tel Aviv. To test the missile defense system's capabilities, a Rafael-produced Sparrow missile was fired from the Mediterranean Sea at Israel, a senior official from the Israeli Ministry of Defense said. The systems detected and tracked the missile and at the correct time fired an Arrow 2 interceptor. All the stages were carried out. We are now going over visual intelligence, broadcasts from interceptor and target missile to determine what occurred in the end stage, he added. The Arrow 2 missile defense system is part of a 5-tiered air defense structure which is aimed at providing Israel with a comprehensive security coverage, according to a spokesman from the Israeli Defense Ministry. Jonathan Mosery, the Arrow 2 system has been operational for years and is intended to be used for long-range threats. The Israeli Defense Ministry said the firing of the missile has no bearing on the Israeli operational system's capability to cope with the existing threat in the region and is merely intended to counter future threats, the Jerusalem Post said. However, unlike the Iron Dome missile defense system, which managed to intercept around 90% of rockets fired from Hamas during the recent Israeli assault on Gaza, the Arrow 2 system has never been used in combat. The other three systems, Iron Beam, David Sling, and Arrow 3, are expected to become operational within the coming 2 years, the Jerusalem Post added. Arrow 2 was developed by the Israel Aerospace Industries with help from Boeing, Elta, and Elbit El-Azira. Speaking at the system's launch in 2000, Major General Eden B. Elihu said, "This is a great day for the Air Defense Forces, for the Air Force, the defense establishment, and I would say the state of Israel." In January, Israel successfully tested the Arrow 3 system, which is designed to intercept missiles at a higher altitude to try and limit the damage from fallout. A long-range Arrow 3 interceptor was fired from Palmyra Air Base south of Tel Aviv. It left the Earth's atmosphere, carried out maneuvers in space, and having fulfilled its mission, fell into the Mediterranean. The test lasted 10 minutes. No real missile was targeted. The Arrow 3 interceptor successfully launched and flew an exo-atmospheric trajectory through space, Israel's defense ministry said in a statement at the time, Reuters reported. The kamikaze satellites fired the Arrow 3 system have been also known as kill vehicles. They are able to identify and trail chemical, biological, or nuclear warheads above the Earth's atmosphere. The interceptors then ram into the missile and destroy them at an altitude where the disintegration is safe. The Arrow 3 can intercept types of missiles that are used by Iran and Syria and are believed to be held in Hezbollah and Lebanon. Tuesday's launch comes just over a year after Israel launched a similar exercise in the Mediterranean Sea, in cooperation with the U.S., which was also detected by a Russian missile warning system. Personally, I think it's a bunch of chest beating. You know, launching a missile to take out another missile, and we've had high-powered chemical lasers and everything else. It's yeah, I guess whatever. You know, the cavemen quit. You know, men quit throwing rocks at each other like cavemen a long time ago. Why are we throwing missiles at each other? It's crazy. But, you know, hey, it looks good. It sounds good. That's all they care about anymore. So, Ferguson is back in the news. Thought this was rather interesting. I'll play the video here. And I'll tell you what, this throws an entirely different, you know, I see a lot of back and forth going on social media with people, whether, you know, Michael Brown did, you know, whether he attacked a cop or whether whether the cop just acted out of whatever, rage or whatever the case may be. Of course, you got people saying it was racism or, you know, I don't think it was racism. I really don't think it was racism. I think it was a more of a matter of an authoritarian issue. I think that I think a lot of people in the police force just have this attitude that you know, the Constitution no longer exists. You do as they say. That's just all there is to it. And like it or not, it doesn't matter. If you don't, they'll beat you down or they'll shoot you or kill your family pet or whatever they, you know. Whatever they can to degrade and demoralize the public. Because that's what they're told to do. They're just following orders. So anyway, let's hear what they Fox 2 has to say about these two key witnesses.
Two key witnesses to the police shooting Michael Brown are construction workers who just happened to be working nearby. One spoke exclusively to Fox 2 days after the shooting. The other just came forward to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Fox Files investigator Chris Hayes takes you through their unique perspectives.
two men who were working for a Jefferson County construction company watched Michael Brown die from half a football field away. One spoke to Fox 2's Shirley Washington just 3 days after the shooting.
There are several leads.
The other spoke to St. Louis Post-Dispatch's Jeremy Kohler for an article published Friday.
The fact that he just happened to be there, it was just pure happenstance that he was there. You really couldn't put him in any kind of camp in terms of what you'd expect him to say.
Both witnesses said they did not see the reported altercation at the police car, but looked up after hearing a shot or shots. Post reporter Kohler wrote, the worker said Brown was kind of walking back toward the cop. His hands were still up, and the witness described Officer Wilson backing up as he fired. The co-worker who spoke to Fox 2 described hearing two pops, then looked up to see Brown.
I seen somebody staggering and running, and when he finally caught himself, he threw his hands up and started screaming, okay, 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 and then the three officers come through the thing, and the one just started shooting.
The Fox 2 witness immediately wrote down what he saw, even drawing this diagram showing he and his co-worker about 50 yards away. He journaled. The officer emptied his gun into the guy. The newspaper witness said Brown's hands started going down after the third shot, and he reportedly moved about 25 feet toward Wilson, who kept backing away and firing. From the worker's vantage point, about 50 yards away, the worker who spoke to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch said he couldn't tell from back there if Brown's motion towards Wilson after the shots, quote, was a stumble to the ground, or, quote, okay, I'm going to get you, you're already shooting me. The co-worker who talked to Fox 2 August 12th described it this way.
Michael was stumbling and falling out coming down the street, and when he caught himself, that's when he threw his arms up, and then here come the officer. At first his gun was down, and then walked till he got about 8 to 10 feet away from him, and there's a shot. I heard 6, 7 shots.
Both witnesses say they've talked to investigators about what they saw. For the Fox Files, I'm Chris Hayes.
It sounds to me much more like an execution than anything else. I mean, that's exactly what it sounded like, was an execution. It just doesn't seem like they the officer was trying too awful hard to prevent anything like that. It's strange. Okay, the next story I just wanted to pass that on because I thought that was a very enlightening report. Says a lot. So hopefully the post I see on social media talking about mainly talking about how it was just absolutely provocated by Michael Brown. And again, I'm not taking sides or anything like that, but when you put that many rounds into somebody, something doesn't sound right. And then there was the audio recording of the gentleman that was talking to a woman over some type of video chat software to where you heard some shots ring off and then a pause and then you heard more shots ring off. I mean, it's really starting to come together, and hopefully people can stop with this attitude that, you know, it is now, that is racism. What I'm seeing a lot on social media absolutely is based with racism. It really is. There's no two ways about it. It's kind of disgusting. Some of it is really disgusting, and it's sad. It's sad. And what boggles my mind is a lot of the people that I see this type of behavior from claim to be God-fearing people, and yet they're just throwing their attitudes out there, or their opinions out there, so nonchalantly, like it, you know. It's a really crazy society when somebody else can lose their life and people want to take sides like it's a football game, and then they want to refuse the facts, absolutely refuse the facts. I mean, there again, I mean, you know, there we go. It was crazy how people, there's Proverbs 1, chapter 1. Read it. It really has so much to do with today and today's society and what is going on. It really does. It's amazing how relevant it is. I need to show somebody this chapter, and I don't mean, I'm speaking to the choir with most of you, but to these people that I'm speaking of, I could show them this scripture and they wouldn't even see it. It would be their opinion that it doesn't apply to them. The people have lost their fear of the Lord. You know? And we're not supposed to fear the Lord in a I don't know, in a negative way. We should probably fear our actions and our thoughts. Actually, you know, I believe that is fear of the Lord. You know, when I was flying an ultralight airplane, I always kept this level of fear, and that's a good thing. It keeps you prepared. It keeps you on your toes, and make sure you keep an eye on your different gauges, and make sure you look good before you bank and turn, or this or that or the other thing. Back when I used to ride a motorcycle on the street, you know, I always kept a level of fear. It kept me on my toes. It kept me watching out for other vehicles to dart in front of me and all that. A certain level of fear is a good thing. And I believe that's what fear of the Lord should be. I see a lot of atheists that spin it, you know, that make it seem like, you know, we just should fear him because he could strike us down, or whatever their reasoning is. And that's not it. That's not it. People just want to throw off self-responsibility in any and every way that they can. They don't want to take responsibility for their words, their thoughts, their actions. So they find some way to put it on something or someone else. It's scary. On with the news. Facebook bans gun owners, allows kitten torture video. Facebook has no problem with a kitten torture video on its site, but when Facebook users talk about guns, the social media giant will censor them without zeal, or censor them with zeal. Recently, a video was posted on Facebook showing two men lighting a helpless kitten in a bucket on fire. But after multiple users flagged the video, Facebook told them it doesn't violate our community standards. I was going through Facebook and I saw this video. User Corinne Denwell told the Daily Mail. I clicked on it, watched it, and I was disgusted. I reported it to Facebook. It took 5 or 6 hours for them to get back to me, and they said it was perfectly fine to have it on there. However, when users attempt to talk about guns or post pictures of firearms, Facebook hits them with community standards violations. A few days ago, gun rights activist Jerry Emery was banned from Facebook after sharing an article explaining the ways in which Connecticut's gun ban is worse than Hitler's gun ban. Facebook said Emery's post, which also included an image stating that gun control helped make the Holocaust possible, doesn't follow Facebook community standards. You're temporarily blocking from posting, Facebook told Emery. The temporary block will last 30 days and you won't be able to post on Facebook until it's finished. You've repeatedly posted things that aren't allowed on Facebook. Read the Facebook community standards to learn what kinds of posts aren't allowed. Similarly, last year, Facebook deactivated a page of Pennsylvania's gun store without warning after the store owners announced its intent to raffle off an AR-15. Our ad guidelines prohibit promotion of the sale of weapons, and the ad guidelines apply to pages with commercial content on them. A Facebook spokesman told Vocative. Ads may not promote the sale or use of weapons, ammunition, or explosives. Facebook even expanded this policy back in March by preventing users under 18 from seeing the official pages of gun shops, effectively placing gun-related content in the same category as porn. So basically, Facebook has no problem with users sharing a video of a kitten meowing in agony while it's in flames, but sharing an image of a Remington 700 mounted on a Harris bipod could get them banned. This hypocrisy is a microcosm of gun control, despite what anti-gun advocates suggest. Gun control is not meant to stop violence, but rather it's meant to restrict rights. And that is totally true. You know, and you can't unfortunately say, well, it's a violation of our First Amendment. I've seen a lot of people make that claim, and that's a false claim. That's a false claim. It's not the same. Facebook has the right to make up its own rules and make people abide by them, and really we have no say in it. The only say we have, is they generate revenue by the amount of people that traffic their site, and the only real say that we have is to walk away from their site. So therefore you lessen the amount of revenue that's generated. However, it would take millions of people before they would change a stance on things. It's the same like with the business. Like Panera Bread, for instance, now no longer allows firearms in their businesses. So if they would lose, say a 30-40% customer base because of their decision to do that, they might change their stance. And the same with it. It's about money. It's about that root of evil. You know what I mean? It's sad, but what are you gonna do? Got another report from RT. This is going to be a device that gets banned rather quick, I can assure you that. Spies offline. New gadget to stop unwanted drone. Google Glass snooping. A new surveillance device has been developed that has the potential to stop drones and Google Glass wearers from hacking into one's Wi-Fi network. Cyborg Unplugged works by sending de-authentication signals to unwanted monitoring or spying devices. The device is the size of a computer adapter, so it can be transported anywhere and can be plugged into any main socket. Once the Cyborg Unplugged detects an unwanted appliance, it alerts the owner of the Wi-Fi network with a flashing light or a sound through the speakers, while it can also send a text message to the user's cell phone. The product, which was developed by programmer Julian Oliver, also kicks off these devices trying to access the wireless network. He hopes he will begin taking orders for the device at the end of the month. Basically, it's a wireless defense shield for your home or place of work, Oliver says. The intent is to counter a growing and tangibly troubling emergence of wirelessly capable devices that are used and abused for surveillance and voyeurism. Oliver, who lives in Berlin, came up with the idea in the summer after a friend complained that someone who was wearing Google Glass device had potentially uploaded content from an exhibition he had put on. He managed to detect how the device had accessed the Wi-Fi connection and wrote a free program about how to prevent this in the future. Such was its popularity that he became inundated with the requests from establishments as varied as casinos to restaurants who were wondering how they could use its program. In the end, he decided to develop a device himself, which would help secure their wireless networks from unwanted devices. The dominant enthusiasts were women, says Oliver. They were concerned about guys at nightclubs taking a little bit home for later, or guys across from them on the train looking them up and down. Even if they didn't know what the device was recording, they felt threatened by its presence. There are two devices being offered. A cheaper one just alerts the owner of the wireless network as being compromised through a flashing light. There is also a more developed model which warns an intrusion through a flashing light, an audible noise through a computer speaker, and also a text message to the owner's mobile phone. The product did not cost Oliver much to build, and he was able to come across the parts relatively easily. It's just a matter of router hardware. But instead of allowing devices to get to the internet, it does precisely the opposite, he says. The product also offers an all-out mode, which will disconnect any surveillance device within its vicinity. However, the company advises against this, stating, "Please note that this all-out mode may not be legal within your jurisdiction. We take no responsibility for the trouble you get yourself into if you choose to deploy our Cyborg Unplug in this mode." The owner of a Cyborg Unplug can select the devices they choose to block, which will be automatically disconnected and will not disrupt any untargeted signals. So it sounds like a pretty decent device, but You know, as with anything else, if it's something that's going to involve Big Brother or anything like that, they will find a way around it. Rest assured, you know, they will spy, and if they can't spy, they will make it illegal and arrest you because they can't spy. I had a real quick short video. It's less than a minute long of of a statement being made by, I believe he's a police. He's an officer of some type. He's a white shirt in Ferguson, and this was taken during a rally. I guess it was like a couple weeks ago, and I just thought it was interesting. I thought I'd show you the video. You know, more or less, police once again trying to tell us lies. Lies. It's crazy. This is their attitude. This is the way they act.
Come back. Thank you.
Is this public property right here?
No, it's police department property.
The police department doesn't belong to the public, sir.
It belongs to us right now. We've defined a line here. We have to protect the public property. What we're doing. Thank you.
Sorry,
please move back.
Please
Let's
don't
go.
touch me,
Please
sir.
move back.
You don't have the authority to touch
Please move
me.
back. Gentlemen.
I mean, I'm trying to figure out exactly what they were so concerned with. Can't figure that out. I mean, what were the people going to do? Pretty interesting. Let's see, and that link is down in the About tab. Here's a video I thought was interesting. It was a video of an interview. Now, they cut off Claire McCaskill, and I noticed that. But anyway, check this out. I really like what the guy that speaks at first has to say. And then when Claire speaks in the end, it seems like they cut her off. Anyway, check this out.
And hold accountable the police departments that obtain sophisticated equipment. These programs were established with a very good intention: to provide equipment that would help law enforcement perform their duties. And the question is whether what our police receive match what they truly need to uphold the law. We need to acknowledge that there have been instances where police have been outgunned by heavily armed criminals, including organized crime and gangs. In addition, we all remember well how helpful some of these programs were to enable police to perform extraordinarily well in the aftermath of the Boston Marathon bombing. But for these programs, the response would not have been as fast or as effective. Of course, the job of law enforcement is to protect the lives and well-being of the people of our nation. Equally important, the job of law enforcement is the protection of our civil rights. So we'll also hear from witnesses with expertise on the civil rights issues that arise as a result of these programs. It's my hope that we in Congress and other government leaders learn from what is discussed during today's hearing and from the ongoing developments in Ferguson and in similar situations across the country. In closing, we're here today because we have responsibility to ensure accountability of funds and equipment provided by the federal government to state and local police. It is our job to ensure that these programs provide value to police, to the communities they serve, and to taxpayers. Dr. Coburn.
Good morning, and thank you to our witnesses for appearing, both this panel and the second one, and thank you to the chairman for convening this hearing. As I look at my short time left remaining in Congress, and having traveled for 2 weeks in Oklahoma in August, I am brought constantly and frequently back to the position of our founders, and not only their vision but their wisdom. Protect and serve. Our founders saw no role for the federal government in state and local police forces, none. And yet what we have seen is, on the basis of what we saw on 9/11, what seems to be an overreaction and a progress toward the federal government in law enforcement is doing the same thing it's done in every other area when it comes to the General Welfare Clause and the Commerce Clause. And we're on dangerous ground of undermining the very principles that built the country. It's hard to see a difference between the militarized and increasingly federalized police force we see in towns across America today and the force that Madison had in mind when he said a standing military force with an overgrown executive will not long be a safe companion to liberty. I have some real heartburn with not just the 1033 program, with the UASI grants, with some of the Justice Department grants, and with a lot of the Homeland Security grants in terms of how they've been utilized, what they've been utilized for. And so I look forward to hearing from our witnesses. I have some significant questions. The 1033 program has been around a long time. It was not just in response to this. But I think we need to have a good airing. We need to re-center where we are. There is no role for the federal government in the local and state police forces in our country. And I hope we can winnow that out today to see where we've stepped across the line and actually have created some problems that wouldn't have been there otherwise. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Coburn. I'm going to ask, once she's given her opening statement, I ask Senator McCaskill to introduce our witnesses, and we'll hear from you. Look forward to that. I'll lead off the question. We're going to have to leave just a little before 11:15 for a meeting in the Capitol. I'm going to try to get back, but in the meantime, you're chairing. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Chairman Carper, I want to thank both you and Dr. Coburn for the interest you have shown in today's hearing. I know your decision to elevate this hearing to the full committee level is a sign of your commitment to oversight in these very important areas, and I'm very appreciative of the fact that it has been elevated to the full committee. I first approached Chairman Carper to hold this hearing because of the shock and sadness I felt as I saw events unfolding in Ferguson, Missouri in the weeks following the death of Michael Brown. I heard reports and saw firsthand about aggressive police actions being used against protesters under the umbrella of, quote, crowd control, and not in response to violence. Like many of you, I saw armored vehicles with a sniper pointing a rifle at an unarmed protester on a warm summer afternoon. I think most Americans were uncomfortable watching a suburban street in St. Louis being transformed with vivid images, powerful images, across this country into a war zone, complete with camouflage, tear gas, rubber bullets, armored vehicles, and laser sights on assault weapons. While this hearing may reveal many strong arguments why some of this equipment may be helpful for the safety of police officers in certain situations, I am confident that militarized policing tactics are not consistent with the peaceful exercise of First Amendment rights of free.
They cut her off early. I don't know why they did that, but they obviously cut her off early. I posted that video on Facebook on my personal feed, and I included some things need to be outlawed: written statements and speeches and teleprompters. If we got rid of those things, we'd know much better the true intent of the liars in office that, quote-unquote, represent our interests. That's how I feel. We need to get rid of these statements, these pre-planned things. We need our public officials to speak off the cuff like I do this show every night, because that's how you'll know their intentions. I don't think really any of us really care how proper they speak, or if they stammer or stutter a little bit when they speak or when they're thinking about something. But getting up and reading a prepared statement about something, you know, and utilizing the majority of the time that they are in that public space on camera, speaking to the people, reading that statement, totally negates any questions that can be asked afterwards. And in today's world, most of those questions have to be pre-approved before they can even be asked, in which statements are prepared, or at least seeds are planted. They think about it. It's ridiculous. We're not going to get the truth from these people in office until we demand it. And the only way we're going to demand it is by, or get it, I'm sorry, is by taking away their prepared statements, their speeches, their, you know, a speech once in a while is a fine thing, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But every time they get on camera, or any time that they get asked questions, they do not need prepared statements like she just read. Tom Coburn didn't sit there and read a prepared statement. And I'm not standing up for any particular one or the other or anything else. I'm just saying, you know, I think Tom Coburn had said, you know, he had a great response with what he had to say, and it appeared he was speaking off the cuff. Anyway, I got one more story for you that kind of almost relates to that. It's just as disturbing. These are your kids, folks. Your kids. The Pentagon is giving grenade launchers to campus police. You heard that right. The Pentagon is giving grenade launchers to campus police. In 1968, students at Columbia University staged a mass uprising, joining other college campuses in protesting not just the war in Vietnam, but their school's collaboration with the Institute for Defense Analysis, a Defense Department affiliate that researches weapons technologies. Today, weapons produced by that institute are used by the U.S. military throughout the world and by campus police forces across the country. The war has come home. The Pentagon's 1033 program, which, by the way, you heard referenced in that C-SPAN video, which allows the Defense Department to unload its excess military equipment onto local police forces, has quietly overflowed onto college campuses. According to the documents obtained by the website Muckrock, more than 100 campus police forces have received military materials from the Pentagon. Schools that participate in the program range from liberal arts to community college to the entire University of Texas system. Emory, Rice, Purdue, and the University of California, Berkeley, are all on the list. In 1990, Congress enacted the National Defense Authorization Act, including the monogamous, I know I said that wrong, I'm sorry, Section 1208, which since 1996 has been known as Program 1033. Over the last 17 years, this trickle-down gift economy has distributed more than $4.3 billion worth of equipment, according to the program administrators. As Ferguson police rolled up to peaceful protesters in military-grade tanks, firing tear gas and rubber bullets, President Obama ordered a review of the program, which reached new highs in regifting under his tenure. It's clear why a review of the program is in order, because it isn't clear at all what sort of equipment these colleges are receiving. David Perry, the president of the International Association of Campus Law Enforcement Administrators, told Politico that 1033 mostly funnels small items to college police forces for daily use. These could be anything from office supplies or uniforms or car parts, but it's probably not all that tame. Campus Safety Magazine recommends that universities take part in the 1033 program to cover a range of needs, from storage units to grenade launchers. That is, after all, what the program is designed to achieve. But Program 1033 doesn't even come close to explaining all the ways in which campus police have been militarized over the past 2 decades. Colleges can also apply for Homeland Security grants, the same ones made available to every municipal police department in the country after 9/11. In 2012, UC Berkeley tried to use the program to purchase an 8-ton armored truck. After a backlash, university officials ultimately decided the truck was not the best choice for a university setting. The following year, Ohio State University acquired a mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicle. So far, it is yet to be targeted. Other college policies are even more difficult to quantify, though they pose immense obstacles to the cultures of free action and thought that academic institutions are supposed to cultivate. One such policy is the Memorandum of Understanding, in which local law enforcement enters into an official partnership with campus peace officers. Sometimes memoranda of understanding can have positive impacts on students, as when they are established between universities and rape crisis centers to ensure that anyone seeking help receives proper care. In this sort of arrangement, universities work with centers in both institutions to train one another, so that resources and knowledge are shared. This is what happens with local and campus police arrangements. The departments draft vague language to work in concert on operations both off and on campus, on and off. But the actual extent of this partnership is not well documented, with the line between campus police forces and those controlled by local government fuzzy at best. Several campus police forces have also been vigorously trained in paramilitary tactics since 2007. In a country where SWAT teams raid private residencies more than 100 times a day, mostly in neighborhoods which people of color live, the decision to train campus officers and overindulge art is a vote in favor of racist policing tactics on the part of the institutions of higher education, even before the training was ever put to use. In the 1960s, campuses went into lockdown because students were occupying buildings. Now they often go into lockdown because campus police are itching to stretch their military muscles. Horrible crimes have been committed with guns at colleges. But using the Virginia Tech massacre and other shootings to justify turning universities into police states is disingenuous, considering that campuses are still among the safest places in the country. And these tactics clearly aren't making them any safer, but amped up fears have made it easy for the Pentagon and local law enforcement to align with campus police while being met with little pushback. I want to interject here something. So we can arm them with all the vehicles and all the grenade launchers and all this other good stuff. We can arm them with all that. But let me tell you what, every single college campus I know of is a gun-free zone. Gun-free zone. So let's say we have a shooter on the campus. Really? Do you think the campus police are going to be able to roll up in their several-ton vehicles and do anything about it before multiple people are killed? Or do you think that a law-abiding citizen carrying a firearm right there, right that moment, would have a better chance of lessening or totally stopping that massacre? You need to ask yourself that question. And you need to be honest. It's ridiculous. It's a bogus excuse. It is a totally bogus excuse. Just last month, campus police at Cal State San Marcos put the university on lockdown based on intelligence that a man was walking around campus with a gun. The suspect, they later learned, was armed only with an umbrella. In December 2013, American University in Washington, D.C. shut down its academic operations to search for a reported gunman who turned out to be an off-duty police officer. On Wednesday, Denison University and all other schools in the district of Granville, Ohio were locked down after police received a phony threat of an impending shooting. Concurrent with increasing lockdown drills and stockpiling of weapons is the stifling of student dissident. In 2009, during the G20 summit, student protesters at the University of Pittsburgh were demonstrating peacefully on their campus when cops demanded they disperse, then quickly proceeded to arrest several of them. Police sprayed pepper gas at passerby and onto the balconies of residents where students were watching the scene below. There was also the infamous mass pepper spraying of the Occupy demonstrators at UC Davis in 2011. Police used CS gas, pepper pellets, and beanbag rounds on UC student protesters throughout 2012. When students and workers at UC Riverside publicly demanded the scaling back of university privatization under a number of sectors, they were met with batons and paintball pellets. The list of infringements upon student dissent, student space, and student bodies is too long to enumerate here. Yet importantly, it is also impossible to quantify, because incidents are never added up in detailed funding records nor corralled into a comprehensible database. In the absence of serious oversight and accounting, narratives are stitched together, stories swapped, and a picture of violent state surveillance and control emerges. The picture squares with that we see in cities, towns, and communities across America. And it squares with much of that that's taken place in response to the killing of Michael Brown by Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson in important ways, including the swiftness and brutality with which police met protesters in Ferguson, the importance of young people and youth culture in conveying images of that brutality to the world. Most of the protesters in Ferguson and those marching in solidarity across the country are young, and young people are more likely to support curtailing police power than their aged peers. Perhaps this has something to do with the channels through which the story is unfolding in Ferguson, was most urgently told, grainy feeds on guerrilla news sites, social media, and yes, websites geared towards millennials like Vice. It probably also has to do with the fact that so many young people mistrust the government, no matter who's in charge, but perhaps most important, it's young people, mostly young people of color, who are targets of policies and feed the warrior cop ethos. Increased surveillance, stop and frisk, and arrest quotas fueled by government grants. Joel Anderson wrote for BuzzFeed that most of the protesters in Ferguson are young black men and some women from Ferguson and the surrounding inner suburbs of St. Louis who see themselves in Brown, not just because he was 18 and black, but also because they have their own tales of being harassed by police. One place to start is with those college campuses whose police forces have received 1033 and Homeland Security funding. The time is ripe for student journalists and activists to use information furnished by Muckrock and to do their own digging to take on police divestment campaigns with the tenacity, political savvy, and exuberance that pushed universities nationwide to divest from the fossil fuels, private prisons, and Israeli occupation. Young people in solidarity with the people of Ferguson and the families who have lost sons and daughters at the hands of militant police are poised to illuminate these connections between education, state surveillance, and state violence in a uniquely powerful way. There's a lot of race being thrown in that article. It's a very, very good article. There's a lot of race in there. And I always want to bring up another incident or other incidents to where young men, it's been young men. I don't really know of any case of any females in this particular situation, but in the last 2-3 years, I've seen a lot of young men lose their lives because they've got something going on. They're disgruntled. They're upset. Something's bothering them. They lost a significant other or whatever the case may be. And so a parent or a peer will call the police and say, hey, you know, I'm concerned about their well-being. Can you please come and check on them? Can you please help us? And the police show up and shoot and kill them. And those are typically young white males. So, you know, we can play the demographics game all we want. We need to focus on the demilitarization of the police, whether it be the public police, the federal police, or campus police. We need to get this power, we need to get this authority away from them. It's just going to ratchet up on both sides. That's all that's going to happen. That's the news I have for you this evening. May God bless you. May He walk with you. Be one with your spirit, and I love you all. I'll see you tomorrow night. Good night.